Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Jack. I am Conrad, and this is the 45, where we will take a look back at the 1920 Premier League season, best and worst style, looking back at the predictions that we started the year with and see how we netted out. Often wrong. Every once in a while, we get one right.
Yeah, it was. Looking back on it, it was really a case of a blind squirrel occasionally finds a nut. And we wanted to do 5 best, 5 worst. We struggled to find 5 best, but we've put together a compilation of our best and our worst.
So we'll start with the worst. And I did on prediction that we both had of Arsenal and Spurs finishing top 4. At 4, I have Arsenal. I don't know what to expect from this team. The biggest questions for me is their back line. They lost. Third place, we both have Spurs. I had zero conviction.
Yeah, you were saying
Arsenal
that.
pick.
I think when you were saying that, you could, in the back of your mind, hear yourself talking right now saying, man, I was a dummy back then. I was a big dummy. North London just kind of said no.
Pooped the bed.
Yeah. We had it backwards. You didn't even have Chelsea in your top 6. I had Chelsea in 5th. It turned out that they finished the best out of all the clubs in London.
I'm listening to that.
You were
They're going to have to outscore their own defense, concerned about Emery.
The Spurs one is excusable because we foresaw that Emery could have imploded. He did implode. What neither of us foresaw, as we'll also see later, we had a lot more faith in Spurs' ability this season. They finished 6th in the
Cost
end.
Pochettino his job.
Pochettino lost his job. They have Mourinho now.
But they had a great comeback. They were down in the lower half.
Yes, much like Manchester United, where they were struggling at the beginning of the season. They improved a bit, and I think they'll leave the season with a bit of happiness, considering where they were at one point. Europa League isn't bad. You're guaranteed Europa League. Arsenal cannot take that from you. And St. Totteringham's Day, I forget what it's called, does not happen this year.
Well, you take 2 out of the big 6 that don't. I mean, yes, Tottenham finished on the very outsides, but you don't expect that to happen, right? But that just shows you the strength of those mid-tier clubs. And we're talking about Sheffield United. I've got that on the brain, obviously. But the second of the worst is that Liverpool won't repeat 97 points. Yeah, I don't see them getting another 97 points, though, and that's what it's going to take to win. So I was right. They didn't get 97. They got 99. But neither one of us saw. I mean, what City and Liverpool did the last 2 seasons, both approaching 100 points. Liverpool getting pipped to the title last year by 1 point, 99-98, or 98-97, excuse me. I mean, that stuff doesn't happen, right? And for them to do that yet again, if they get to 99, and then obviously City far behind.
Yeah, I mean, I said neither would get to 90, and I was half right, and you were half right. I think we were right on our prediction of how City would struggle, where an increase in talent from elsewhere and a failure to really improve in the areas that they needed to for Manchester City cost them in the end. For Liverpool, I think neither of us were really as aware of how well-oiled they would be in the first half of the season. Yeah, you could argue that the wheels kind of fell off a little bit at the end, especially after they won the title. Yeah. But really kind of post-Watford when they lost that match 3-0. They've not had a great run since then. But at the end of the day, they are second most points of all time.
Clearing away
and a top 5 Premier League champion team of all time. I think it's very
top
easy
division,
to
even taking away.
They had a very good season, and I don't think we expected that. I expected them to win the title. You expected them to finish second, but neither of us expected the level of dominance they would hold.
Certainly not. Moving on to the third terrible prediction of Spurs challenge.
It's on me.
I don't share anything in this one.
Dude, I think that Spurs, they have a shot to just be challenging, but will they be able to?
So I wasn't a bad thought. I mean, this is a team coming off of a Champions League final. Perennially top 4 the last 5 or 6 years.
It's been so long since that Champions League final that I forgot that they were in a Champions League final just over a year and 2 months ago. Yeah. They have, I think I stand by this, the third, maybe fourth now that Manchester United have really improved, but the third most talent in the Premier League. And all it took was a good run and a good start, and maybe they could have finished third like we saw them to, maybe even challenging for silverware. But ultimately, neither of us because Spurs have been such a consistent in the Premier League, such a rare consistency, because we've seen with our predictions how wrong we can be half the time. And they were a consistent for several years, and we did not expect them to become worn out of the same leadership of Pochettino. And that just they just kind of blew up, and never could really recover to the point that they would be anywhere close to challenging. It doesn't help also that Liverpool were a historic leader, where there was really after about, I want to say 10 matches. You didn't say the title was done.
It was over, yeah.
But the way they were playing, winning every single match up until the Manchester United draw, and then not losing until over 20 matches into the season, Spurs never really had a chance, looking back.
I don't think you can discount the lateness in their new home opening, right? They did not get into Tottenham Hotspur Stadium until well into the beginning of the league, so they were still operating out of their temporary place after White Hart Lane being torn down in favor of the new stadium. So I think that had a lot to do with it. And then I do think they tuned Pochettino out for whatever reason. I think you're right on
I think they just got worn out, and much like when West Ham moved into their new stadium, there's a bit of a hangover. You don't really kind of go in with the same intensity.
You don't feel home.
It doesn't feel at home. You feel it takes a bit of time to work it in as your home ground for the fans as well. You're not used to your normal seat. And ultimately, there were too many changing pieces that maybe in early August this looked possible, but now almost a year later.
And again, their lack of movement in the transfer window because all the money was going into the stadium, that did not help.
And I mean, even by defense, they actually did make some serious moves that window. It was the first time they made a bunch of moves. They had Ndombele, who flopped. Lo Celso, I think he was a very good signing. And Sessegnon, who I think will long-term be a good signing.
Injury problems, but... Yeah.
But I ultimately... These three sides, for me, just have the least talent in the league and don't really have a style.
Well, Newcastle got a new manager. Brighton, new manager. Sheffield, new to the Premier League. I had Newcastle going down. I had Brighton going down. We'll touch on that in a second. I don't think anybody expected Sheffield to do what they did.
No. That was a stinker. That was a bad prediction, ultimately. I think maybe stylistically they had yet to show themselves as a force, and maybe that's an argument you could make. But ultimately, they did not have anywhere close to the least amount of talent. I think you were dead on with your Norwich call that they don't have much talent. I kind of missed the ball on that one, choosing Sheffield United as my newly promoted side to go down. And ultimately, just the relegation picture is so difficult to call, but I think we missed Watford. That was one that I feel like could have been what was kind of easy to see.
Well, they went 0 for 11.
Yeah, they were not good.
Two managers.
They were not good. They went through several managers this season. That was one that we missed, and obviously, I apologize, Chris Wilder. Don't be mad at me.
We both got Brighton absolutely right.
They would have been relegated. They were very lucky last year. They fired Chris Hughton, their last manager. They are just one of the shakiest teams for me. I think they are going to be one of the teams that is going to fall down.
So, yeah, Brighton to get relegated, that one, I don't know how to play that team, like how to figure that team out.
They played matches.
They're unremarkable.
They won matches.
Win enough points. And they were, what, 15th, 16th?
And they pissed off Arsenal fans. Neil Maupay, he got in their heads. He single-handedly is the reason Matteo Guendouzi is out of Arsenal probably this summer, because he got in their head, and they just got results. That's on us for not knowing how good they are, but they just are an unremarkable side who picked up points. And
playing a great stadium.
Exactly. And they ultimately, they were never, I think, really under serious threat, and that was because they were consistent throughout the season. And I think that's just a credit to them for withstanding the pressure from the Footy 5 about how we believe that they're going to go get relegated.
No pressure. All right, on to lighter notes. The best, where we this is the blind squirrel nut part of the show. Leicester to finish 6th. In number 6, I've got my first surprise here. I've got Leicester City. So I didn't have Leicester much of the season at 3, right? But I did feel like they had enough in the tank to challenge, right? I didn't, to the point we made earlier. Leicester 6th, is that more of a and they ended up 5th, but is that more of a Spurs and Arsenal failure? And, but they were 14 points clear of 4th place with 13 matches to go.
I mean, obviously, if I think Spurs and Arsenal and even Manchester United for a good portion of the season were playing at the level that they should be playing based on their size of their club, Leicester probably would have struggled a bit more, but they had a phenomenal start to the season. You were dead on. They ended up having a Golden Boot winner in Jamie Vardy. Neither of us saw that coming.
25 goals.
One of the oldest, if not the oldest, Golden Boot winner in the history of the league. And besides him as their old player and Kasper Schmeichel in between the sticks, they have a lot of good young talent. I was watching the Manchester United-Leicester game, even though they lost that the other day. Wilfred Ndidi just was on my... He was the center of the match for me. He's such a good, talented player, and they have so many of them. Even after losing Maguire, they managed to improve their defense from last season, and it was a nail-on call on their talent from you. So you found the nuts.
Squirrel found nut.
But a guy I think is a bit of a dark horse for this is Tammy Abraham. He scored 26 goals for Villa in the Championship last year in 40 league games. And he comes in and he's the Chelsea #1 striker possibly, because you look at them, they couldn't sign anybody, so they're going to rely on their youth and their loan players that got them in this trouble.
Yep. So you had Tammy Abraham as Young Player of the Year.
Yeah.
We don't know as of recording whether he won that or not.
Yeah.
But he had a stellar season. Obviously, overlooked a little bit towards the end as Giroud really came into form in the restart, but absolutely stellar season for Abraham.
I think ultimately, I was pretty spot on in the fact that he would be the leading player in a Chelsea team that was a bit devoid of talent because of the transfer ban. He was a good finisher. He obviously has some pretty big flaws to his game still. I don't think they're irreparable. I think with the signings of Timo Werner and Hakim Ziyech, there's going to be a lot of talent and a lot of competition for places. So he'll improve. But I do think I did a good job with calling that he would be in a spot to succeed. And he did step up to the plate, and he succeeded. Obviously, he fell off a little bit towards the end of the season. And I think that's to be expected. He's a young player. They'll have the ebbs and flows, different than more experienced players. And especially wearing the weight of the Chelsea jersey, he did a very good job of leading the line in a team that did not have much going on for them.
One thing that we talked about at the beginning of the season was Chelsea's general reluctance to play youth. And they were coming off of the transfer ban, and we were all like, all right, how is Lampard going to do this with a young team? Mm-hmm. It was unprecedented. And now it's just normal for Chelsea to be playing kids. And a year ago, we were like, no way they're going to do this well with such a young side. And Tammy Abraham is example one of that, alongside Pulisic and some of these others who played great.
We talked about it. We said they're going to have to bring back the kids from on loan and play them. They played several of them. And I think we're beginning to see a change in the culture at Chelsea. Roman Abramovich is investing in young, up-and-coming talent. And I think Frank Lampard has this side poised for challenging for a title. Maybe not next year. I think Liverpool and City still are favorites, but they're pushing again for another title within the next several years. And I think under Frank Lampard, I will make a prediction in this video. They will win a title under Frank Lampard within the next 5 years.
Premier League title.
Premier League title. Next 5 years.
I wouldn't rule it out for sure. Liverpool to win the league. I had them second, so it wasn't mine.
And I think the ultimate deciding factor could be Liverpool want this more than anything. They have not won it in almost 30 years. If they don't get it this year, it'll be 30 years since their last title in 1990. And City, however, they're back-to-back champions.
This would be 3 in a row they're going for.
I think the passion from Liverpool will trump all. I think it will be their only trophy this year. I think that City will have a serious.
I think the passion thing was absolutely right.
Yeah.
I mean,
you saw it when the season ended.
Unbelievable.
And the scenes obviously dampened by the fact that neither of us saw a global pandemic ruining the celebrations.
We did not have that in the prediction set.
But I think that they got themselves to that point, and they'll be disappointed they couldn't celebrate it. And Jurgen Klopp loves to call his side mentality monsters. Maybe they say, we're hoping maybe next year we can get a quarter of fans in attendance, maybe all of them by the end of the season. Who knows how that's going to pan out, because we know how much things change during the course of the season.
48-hour swings right now.
They may want to say, win it with fans in the stadium next year. But the passion was the big thing for Liverpool. They had a lot of 1-0, 2-1 victories, where in the end it just came down to being more mentally determined to win those matches. A year before that, we said they needed to stop drawing so many matches. And they ended up losing the title to City because of draws against Everton.
And those draws turned into wins.
And those draws turned into wins, and those wins turned into a joint record with Manchester City with 32 wins in a season, which is a joint record. 99 points. We didn't see that amount of dominance coming, but I definitely saw the passion for Liverpool eventually pushing forward. As a side note, I also said Manchester City will win the Champions League because Liverpool wins the Premier League.
Still has a shot.
Asterisk next to that. Maybe I'll be 2 for 2.
To be determined. And second to last here of the best, Norwich. I take no joy in Norwich finishing bottom of the table, but they gave up a lot of goals in the championship, and they didn't do anything in the transfer window. I've got Norwich. They won the championship, but made very few moves. We talked about this in the Transfer Stupid. They stick with the same club that got them the title and the promotion. They gave up a lot of goals when they came up in the championship, even though they were a very, very dominant side in the championship, won by a lot. But they did nothing to help their cause, didn't change their mentality, and just didn't have the talent to compete.
They obviously believed in themselves. I think they have a good amount of talent. I think they've got Max Aarons, Ben Godfrey, Jamal Lewis, Emi Buendia, Timo Pukki.
For now,
I expect a lot of those players will probably head out, especially the young English guys, will probably be plucked up by some of the bigger English clubs. So we're still in the Premier League.
Leeds are going to want to spend to reinforce as they come up. Same thing if Brentford make it, or Fulham or whomever.
Yeah. I think that it will be interesting. It was interesting to see that they actually tried. They had some big victories. They beat Manchester City. So we saw that they had the capacity for these big results, but the goals with Timo Pukki dried up after a really good start. And eventually, overall, they kind of just fell flat because of a lack of depth and lack of talent. They were very unfortunate with injuries, very unfortunate with a lack of depth. But that is a byproduct of, I don't want to say we could have been right about Sheffield United, but if you swapped the injury issues for Sheffield United and Norwich, it's obviously a huge what if, but it's the kind of thing where one side got very, very lucky and one side got very, very unlucky. Yeah. And so I think Norwich, it was a good call on their bluff that they're going to try and attack these sides. They managed to have some good matches, but they missed far too many to stay in the league.
I think you look at that as you're coming up new. Daniel Farke had not had any experience in the Premier League. Yeah, we can compete. And then you get in there, you're like, holy crap, this is a whole different thing.
It doesn't help that they start with Liverpool, who are hungry, and they beat them 4-0 in the first match with an own goal within 3 minutes. It was not a good start to the season. And ultimately, they just did not have enough in the tank to get it over.
Daniel Farke hang around, or you think they're gonna find somebody else?
I mean, I think that, especially right now, it's tough to say that you are going to be able to invest resources to make a wholesale improvement and rebuild to push back up into the Premier League. So I think give them another chance. Get them back up.
Last one, Ederson to win the Golden Glove. This is 100% you. I had David De Gea.
They're just so dominant in so many matches. He's just going to get a clean sheet because his offense has just been beating up.
They're going to have the 60% possession.
Exactly. I don't think that he deals with the same kind of pressures that David De Gea or even necessarily Alisson at Liverpool does, because City plays such a dominating style of possession.
I think the dominating possession angle is 100%. I mean, City puts so much pressure on you, and you get so physically exhausted defending that mounting any kind of counterattack against that City, you don't have to have the best back line in the league when you've got somebody of Ederson's caliber, never mind the distribution that he also provides.
Yeah, I think that before the season, I picked Ederson not because of his individual talent. I would have had him probably third or fourth in terms of talented goalkeepers in the league behind Alisson, De Gea, and maybe Hugo Lloris. But he actually had a very, very good season. And I think credit goes to him for a Manchester City backline, which was at its worst for several years. Losing Vincent Kompany, I think, went under the radar in terms of importance. So having a leader in the backline. And injuries as well. Aymeric Laporte, losing him for many, many matches. But even when he came back, they still had these defensive frailties because Fernandinho and Rodri, I think there was a bit of a disconnect. One was very good defensively. One was very good, I think, with the passing aspect of the game. But they weren't able to... They were only able to play one at a time, and I think neither of them really had a perfect blend.
Unless you were dropping Fernandinho into the back line, which they did on a number of occasions.
Exactly. So I think at the end of the day, Ederson, I think, proved that he is one of the premier goalies, not just in the league, but in the world. And I think that ultimately you could make the argument, Alisson, if he doesn't miss 9 matches, does he make up that 2 or 3 match deficit that he had?
16-13.
And you maybe say he probably would have, but Ederson, at the end of the day, 16 out of 38 is quite a good return, especially considering that they had, I think, Benjamin Mendy. I think you got to replace him. I don't like him at left back for them. You got to find a new partner for Laporte and right
Stones,
back.
Isn't it?
I think Kalidou Koulibaly is the perfect guy for you if you're Manchester City. He's experienced. He can come in next season and he's gonna fit the age bracket. Got to spend a lot of money, but you got to add there. And I think that then we could see him have an even better season because his distribution is top in the world.
He's unbelievable. He's a sweeper. I mean, he's really like a fifth defender, really.
He is. He is.
Well, that'll do it for us for the good and the bad. A lot of it was ugly, but that'll do for this season. We will be back talking a little bit of Champions League as that picks up again here in August. For Jack, Conrad, this has been the 45 Look Back. Please like, subscribe, check us out on the Twitter at the 45. Take care now.